Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. We are very happy that you're all here. I see some new faces in the crowd this morning. I'm very excited about that. Thank you for being with us. You will notice that our mission statement is written on the front of our order of service, and it says that we are a welcoming congregation freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. That is who we are about. Welcome. For all of you who are here, whether first time or for the 100th time, we urge you to join us after the service for refreshments and conversation through the doors, through the kitchen, and out onto the patio. I know you'll find some wonderful fellowship there. Each of us here is encouraged to grow spiritually in fellowship with others, offering mutual support in times of need. Please know that if you are new to us, that there are hearing devices. If you should need something like that, raise your hand and one of the ushers will bring you something. There's also large print hymnals if you would like to see the music actually in larger print like me. Also, you might have picked up a Sunday News, and if you haven't, I urge you to do that on your way out the door. This is our weekly upcoming events, and there's lots going on even in this quieter time. I especially want to point your attention to the social justice news on that front page and remind you that next Saturday, June 20th at 7 o'clock right here in our sanctuary, Desmond Meade, who's president of the Florida Rights Restoration Council, will be speaking about Florida's lifelong ban on voting after a person is convicted of a felony and has served their time. Florida is only one of 2 states that maintains that ban. Mr. Meade is a very dynamic speaker, insightful, and petitions will be available to be signed in the foyer afterwards. I know that a few of the folks in the audience here have heard him speak before, and that's why he's coming to our sanctuary, so I urge you to attend. As we begin our service, I urge you to silence any technological equipment that you may be carrying with you, either in a backpack or in your pocket or in a purse. And let us deepen into a time of worshipful prayer.
From our separate joys and struggles, we come here to find the peace of balance, to find the blessings of restlessness, to follow, to lead, to teach, to learn, to join in the dance, to catch our breath, to give generously, to receive gratefully. All are welcome here. If you feel steady and composed, if you feel completely lost, if you don't know what you feel, this is a place for you because you matter and you are loved. Let's join together in the response to the chalice lighting words found in your order of service as Jan Jurgens lights our chalice. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, we gather this day. Just that one. And Jan has also lit a candle this morning in the memory of Dorothy Savage, a longtime member who passed away at the end of this week. We'll all remember Dorothy. More information will be coming from her family, we hope. But as of now, there's no information about any possible memorial service. So we'll hold Dorothy in our hearts and minds as we travel through this service together. And let's take a moment of silence for Dorothy. I'm sure Dorothy would love to hear our voices joined in song. So let's open our service with hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. And please rise and body your spirit. Trials in this life appear all the same.
There are no children, but I have a story to tell you this morning. The story is of a king who wanted to be a great king. And he thought that if he had the answers to 3 questions, he could become the king that he hoped to be. So the 3 questions were, who is the right person for me to be with? Second question was, what are the right things that I should be doing? And the third question was, what time should I be doing each of these things? 3 questions. And his advisors, though they tried, didn't satisfy his questions. He wasn't satisfied with their answers. And so he decided to take a journey and find the truth somewhere else. He had heard about a hermit that lived in the woods. Isn't it great that there are always hermits in woods for these stories? He heard about a hermit that lived in the woods, and so he decided to go visit the hermit. And with a retinue of some of his people, he traveled. But as they approached the edge of the wood, he told his people to stay back. He wanted to go in and ride in by himself. So he did. And he arrived at the hermitage to find the hermit digging in his garden. And so he stopped, and the hermit greeted him nicely. And so he said, this is why I've come. I've come to ask these 3 questions. Maybe you're wise enough to tell me the answer. And he asked the 3 questions. Who are the people I should be with? What are the things that I should be doing? And what are the times that I should be doing each of those things? Well, the hermit looked at him wisely, but he continued digging and not answering the question. The king watched him for a while, and he realized as he was watching that the hermit was very frail and elderly. And he offered to take over the digging, and the hermit was very happy to have the king do that. And so the king dug for about an hour, and after an hour he stood up and he wiped his brow and he asked the questions again, and still no response. And again, after an hour or 2, it was getting dark, he asked again. But before the hermit could answer the question this time, they heard footsteps, and there was a man running toward them with a wound in his side, and he was bleeding, and he fell down at the foot of the king, unconscious. And so the king and the hermit went to this person's care, and they cleaned and wrapped his bandages, and the hermit went and got water, and they cared for him. And they carried him into the hermitage, put him on a cot, and the king lay next to him all night, changing bandages because he was still bleeding. And he was doing that in the morning when this man woke up. And the man looked up into the face of the king and said, "Forgive me." The king said, "What? What do I have to forgive you for?" And the man said, "I had come to ambush you. You had imprisoned my brother many years ago and taken away our lands, and I had pledged to kill you. And so I had hid. I had heard you were coming, and I hid, and I was going to attack you. But when you didn't return after many hours, I decided to seek you out. Your retinue saw me, your guards saw me, and they recognized me, and they tried to kill me, but I got away, and I came, and I was still going to kill you, but you have saved my life. So now, if I live, I want to live and serve you." Well, the king was overjoyed at having somebody to reconcile somebody that had been an enemy for so long. And he promised the man that if he lived, he would restore his lands. And he called for his retinue to come and take the man back to the palace so that his doctor could care for this man. But before he left, he asked the hermit one more time about the 3 questions. And the hermit said, "Your questions have been answered." And the king said, "How?" "How?" the hermit said. "Well, yesterday you came to me, and you saw that I was elderly and frail, and you offered to take up the digging in my garden. And if you had just returned and gone home after not getting an answer, that man would have ambushed you and possibly killed you. So the most important time was the time you were digging in the garden, and the most important person was me at the time, and the most important thing to be doing was to be taking care of me and doing good for me. And then when that man came running, the most important thing to do was to care for him. And the most important time, obviously, was right then and there. And the most important person was the man who was dying. And so you see, the most important time is always the present. It's the only time that we can control. We can look at the past and say, well, I could have done something differently. And we can look at the future, but the future is just imagination. But the present is what we have control of. And so it's the most important time. And the most important person, obviously, is the person that is there with you in the moment. And the most important thing to do is to do good for others. And so the king went away satisfied that he had the answer, and he served his country well and long. This morning's story. Let's join together in singing, as we're seated, hymn number 90, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day. Please join me in the spirit of meditation, first spoken and then silent. We have come through the doors one by one, seeking something greater than ourselves. We sit shoulder to shoulder in this beautiful place, a place where we come not only to witness the unfolding of life, celebrations of dedication, of welcome, of union, of parting, and of death, but also to face ourselves in the context of all those things, and in the daily flow of our lives, our hopes and our uncertainties, our choices, our successes, and our failings, those things we share and those things we keep closely to ourselves. In the company of our fellow travelers, we hold this moment as an opportunity to breathe deeply and find a stillness within the all too busy rush of our lives. A calm center in which we can rediscover our true selves and our right relationship with the people and the world around us. Spirit of love, grow within us so that together we can build a world where the needs of all can be met. Spirit of life, nurture our spirits so that we can create a place where others too can be healed and strengthened. Spirit of truth, quicken our sense of what is right and good so that we may be models for those who come after us. Spirit of compassion, cultivate this feeling of community where we find comfort and strength to weather the storms of life and the certainty of death. Spirit of justice, inspire us to live a life of selflessness and sharing so that all may come to know the abundance we enjoy. Spirit of hope, stay with us now and always as we strive forward toward the goal of beloved community here in our earthly home. Please turn your hymnals to number 610 and join me with me in a responsive reading, The Journey of Love. Where in our hearts is that burning of desire? Whence comes that drive in us? Whence comes that storm? But sometimes, with a sigh, you can cross the vast desert. You may find sometime a treasure on your way. The second reading this morning is a poem titled Love After Love by Derek Walcott. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. This morning's offering for the ongoing mission of this wonderful congregation will be gratefully received. How many of you remember when you were young creating a special hiding place? A fort in the backyard, or a cave made by throwing a blanket over a couple of pieces of furniture, or maybe just a little space in the back of a closet. Do you remember what it felt like to be hunkered down in that special place? That you had somehow retreated safe from the world? When I was young, I had a bunk bed in my room, and I would love to collect a few of my favorite things to play with, drape a bedspread down from the top bunk, and hide myself away for a while, letting my own imagination take me where it would. The fact that I had a very small room and could have just as easily closed the door never really occurred to me. It was, in part, the coziness of that space that made it work, that made it special. I think one of my first real introspective moments came in that space, sitting with my back against the headboard, looking around at my small surroundings, then thinking of the world going on outside, and then considering further myself as an active participant in that world. Now, granted, at the age of 5 or 6, there wasn't a lot of life to look at, but in my mind's eye, I saw myself as if for the first time from the point of view of an observer. As time went on, and as I suspect that this is true of many of you, these excursions into self-awareness developed into a recognition that who I was becoming out in the world, the person I needed to be cool, or to be funny, or to be dateable, or to be successful, wasn't always in line with the person who felt safe and fully whole there in my cozy space. As I shared a couple of weeks ago, in my loneliness, I longed to be a part of the crowd, but I also understood that the me that I was most comfortable with might have a difficult time fitting in. The human need for connection is strong, however, and to make it out there, many of us tend to hide our true selves, put on a mask, and go along. As the educator and writer Parker Palmer puts it, we can sometimes become so successful at this that we eventually lose touch with our souls and disappear into our roles, living a somewhat divided life. I was particularly moved last Sunday by Mike Diaz's expression of this as a gay man who understood at an incredibly early age that who he was inside could not be fully expressed, even within his own household, let alone the outside world, because it would be too dangerous. This is the experience of so many gays and lesbians and transgender people, but it is also our own experience, only to a lesser degree maybe. We learn to move daily between our inner self, the one we know to be true, and our public selves, the person we show to the world. As we work to integrate with the outer world, some of us lose a sense of our own integration. The soul disappears into the role, and we struggle. The more we work to fit in as we move from our youth to young adulthood to adulthood and adult responsibilities, the less time we give ourselves to retreat and take stock, to find the center and let our imaginations go to new possibilities. Part of the reason we stop fully retreating, I think, is that more time necessary spent in the real world, as we call it, the more stuff there is to bring back and process. And that's pretty daunting. How can we possibly make sense of all that's going on out there? Another possible reason we stop retreating is that when we do so, we recognize and find discomfort in the growing gulf between role and soul. I certainly experienced this in my work in the educational publishing field. Better to use our time to just escape and get away from it all, the vacation of a lifetime. But of course, that doesn't feel our need necessarily for integration. Each of the major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, offer their adherents an annual time for reflection. For Christians, there is the time of Lent leading up to Easter. For Jewish people, the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. For Muslims, it is the holy month of Ramadan, which this year begins this coming Wednesday evening. As with the other observances, Ramadan is a time for sacrifice, reflection, and spiritual discipline, a time to be aware of human frailty, a time to atone for past transgressions, for expressing gratitude to God and family, and for remembering and responding to the needs of poor and hungry people. Atonement is a common theme. Atonement, at-one-ment. A time to work towards reintegration with the higher self, the true self, and rededicate oneself to the good life. Of course, each of these faiths has a specific prescription for what that life should look like, which may or may not align with your inner self. Hinduism and Buddhism teach that a more regular effort at achieving integration through meditation or yogic practices is warranted in this world of constant distractions and suffering. And of course, they're right. The expression, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, is telling us that the eternal dimension of life is here and now. We simply need to find a way to rid ourselves of our bodily concerns and fears and wake up so that we can be fully present in each moment. One of the things that's brought up over and over in our seminary education is the need for ministers to have a regular spiritual practice that allows them to stay centered so that they can be fully present for their congregation both individually and collectively. All along the path to ministry, the standard question gets repeated: how is your spiritual practice? But of course, this is not something that's supposed to be reserved for ministers. It's important for everyone. And so let me ask you that question. How is your spiritual practice? What do you do to take care of yourself, to find joy, to take stock of your relationship with your true self? Unitarian Universalists have long respected the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, positing for the most part that responsibility with the individual. And while we hold up reason as an important filter in all aspects of our lives, the search for truth and meaning was never meant to be a purely intellectual exercise. A big part of discovering truth and meaning is rediscovering yourself over and over again. Historically, as a tradition, we have looked back to the transcendentalists for role models in this pursuit, and often it is to nature that we turn. In 1832, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote in his journal, "From the White Mountains in New Hampshire," July 14th, "The good of going into the mountains is that life is reconsidered. It is far from the slavery of your own modes of living, and you have an opportunity of viewing the town at such a distance as may afford you a just view. Nor can you have any such mistaken apprehension as might be expected from the place you occupy and the round of customs you run at home." But Emerson also understood that a regular practice of retreating from the world was only so that you can engage it more openly and honestly. On that same journey, he placed these words into his journal: "Religion in the mind is not credulity, and in the practice is not form. It is a life. It is the order and soundness of an individual. It is not something else to be got, to be added, but it is a new life of those faculties you have. It is to do right. It is to love. It is to serve. It is to think. It is to be humble." This afternoon I head for the western woods of Maine, not far at all from where Emerson penned those words. It's a time for retreat, a time to take stock both personally and as the minister of this wonderful congregation. Even before I leave, I can tell you that personally, while I have grown a great deal in this first year, there have been very few surprises in this new role. I've been around churches my whole life, and the things I struggled with are the things I expected would be difficult. Unfortunately, I found that the personal faults that I've been working on my whole adult life did not disappear simply because I was awarded the title of minister. What did surprise me this year was you. I came ready to spend some time settling in and getting to know you, and boom, we were off and running. The energy was high, the passion great. We have accomplished some incredible things this year, some of which are quite visible. After another successful year of the forum with wonderful guests and speakers, a great year of and fall and spring of Beyond Sunday program that surpassed our expectations, a Progressive Voices series that was one of the best ever, the creation of a new vision for our church for the year 2020. This is big, something that will guide us and frame our goals and decisions over the next 5 years. For the second year in a row, a successful stewardship campaign that has started us on the road to financial health with the help of steady guidance from a strong lay leadership. A religious education program that has kept our children engaged and informed and which has added to our overall sense of community. A social justice committee that is bursting with people and ideas and continues to serve and teach. 2 new communities in leadership and communications and technologies that are looking to find ways to support our communications process and our leadership capabilities. And speaking of new committees, Buildings and Grounds has split so that the energy can be focused more directly on the needs of our buildings and on our beautiful gardens, including beautiful new plantings in the front of our congregation. There's also a new garden wedding committee that has created outdoor space and new publicity to introduce others to the wonders and appeals of our grounds. The music and worship committee that has managed the creative side of our endeavor with skill and aplomb and who will be challenged again as they face expected and unexpected changes in the new year. The addition of a worship associates team that will become more visible next year, but that has already begun the process of looking at the shape and flow of our worship to make it even more meaningful. Our membership team has worked very hard to be sure that everyone who walks through our doors are welcomed warmly and engaged in a way that is memorable and meaningful, offering a path to membership that this year has served well over 30 people. We have a wonderful hospitality crew that has stabilized our coffee hour situation. And there's been tremendous activity behind the scenes as well. Your board of trustees and your program council have pushed and pulled this congregation into believing in itself as a program church with the structures and the bylaws in place to make it work well. Thank you very much. And on the pastoral front, the caring committee has continued their rounds with those who are homebound and ill and just in need of a warm presence from this community. In addition to that, you have continued to be a very social group. Ann and I are practically out of breath for keeping up. Well, Ann isn't. I am. So many good things have happened, and I don't sense a drop in energy. One of the important outcomes of this past year is that we realize we need a new approach to the high season. We need to approach it differently and begin living up to our 2020 vision of, quote, providing a quality worship experience in the sanctuary for all those who wish to attend. So another new committee, Responding to Growth, will continue to look to you for help in coming up with creative solutions to what is an incredibly wonderful problem to have. So many good things on which to take stock. And this slower summer period is a good time to pause, reflect, and consider how to move forward in a way that is true to our mission and our new vision. I tell you that the things that have really challenged me the most in this role have come from the outside. Beginning last summer with the events in Ferguson, Missouri, which then seemed to bubble up in places all around the country, keeping us off balance, confused and angry. Further away, but perhaps even more disturbing, is the growing presence of ISIS and its challenge to a rational mindset. What do you do with such passionate brutality. I've come to see our local problems with a bit more clarity: the rights of farm workers, the homeless, the growing gap in income and wealth. These are not things that are going away quickly, and I feel the challenge of leading a congregation in this uncertain world. But of course, neither you nor I are helpless. To be present to all these things, however, means that we need to find our true selves and learn to be present for the most important person and do the most important thing here and now. The spiritual writer Marianne Williamson has said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most." We seek solitude to find our true selves, but character is built in community, in compassionate understanding, and in social action. In the opening lines of David Copperfield, Charles Dickens writes, "Whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life or whether that station will be held by somebody else, these pages must show." The book of our own lives is still to be finished. Our first task is to take stock of where we are, be aware, look inward, and then join in community to live the one precious life each of us has to give. May it be so. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome. Let's join together in singing again hymn number 163, one of my favorites, "For the Earth Forever Turning." Rise in body or spirit.
For the skies forever
May the blessing of truth be upon us, the power of love direct and sustain us, and may the peace of this community preserve our going out and coming in from this time forth until we meet again. Go in peace.